Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather. So today we'll be doing a furniture makeover on a pair of end tables. So these end tables are looking pretty sad. They used to be in our bedroom and then I swapped them out for a different look. So they need to be updated. So they have some bleed through on the top. They also have some nicks and scratches along the bottom here, and they just need an overall updated look. So if you yourself are looking to update a piece of finished furniture or you're just curious on the process, this video will be perfect for you. Also, it's just fun to sit back and watch a furniture makeover. So let's go ahead and get started. If you are familiar with any of my videos, you know that I usually start off with cleaning the furniture. But today we're going to start off with sanding, and then we'll go ahead and I'll dust it off and give it a clean after. So I'm going to sand the tops with a power sander, and then I'll hand sand or hand scuff the bottoms. So we're going for a nice exposed wood finish up top, and then I'll be repainting the bottom. Starting off with a 60 grit. Change your plans. That will take forever. So I must have put a lot of layers of paint on this. So this happens in your furniture piece. Either you can go with a heavier grit sandpaper and, proceed in that option, but it might take a while, or you can do the citrus strip and, put it on and then scrape it off. So we're gonna do the citrus strip. So it's the paint and varnish stripping gel. This is also really good if you want antique mirrors. If you want a video on that, let me know in the comments. All right, let's go ham on this. You want a chip brush and some gloves. So I'm just gonna pour it on and just kind of dab it out. The edges are kind of hard to do. So what I like to do is just take the brush that has the goopies on there and just kind of clean it off and use that edge to get the remaining product off your brush, and then just and then kind of spread it out like that. You kind of want to just do like a tap, because if you go too much like this, then you're going to get it too thin. So you kind of just want to tap and go. Here's what the first one looks like. And this is the second tabletop. So I'm going to go ahead and let these sit for about a half hour and then come back and check on them. So if you do have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and give this video a thumbs up if you are liking it so far. We are just getting started on the makeover, so let's let this go ahead and sit for about a half hour, and then we will come back and it'll be full steam ahead. This is exactly the look that you're going for when you are wondering if the remover is done its job. So the paint looks all crinkled up and it's just gonna scrape right off. It should be really easy to scrape off. If there's any spots that aren't yet, just let it sit for a little bit longer. If it looks like it's dried out in any areas, you can also put more of that on. So I'm just going in with a spatula and scraping off the paint, and it is coming off beautifully. I'm using a solution of vinegar and water just to clean off the residuals on the piece here. And this is how it looks after it's all clean. So now that I have the top all cleaned off, I'm gonna have to sand the bottom. So I usually like to flip them over so that it's not so hard on the back. So I'm just going in with an 80 grit sandpaper for right now, and then what I'm going to do is just take it down to where it's going to be nice and smooth. So it took a couple hours and I got a little carried away, but I got all that paint removed and they're looking good. Now I'm just going to smooth everything out, so I'm going by feel, And if I feel a little ridge or any kind of like rough areas or bumps, I'm just gonna go over with some sandpaper and smooth it out. So I like to start with a 120 grit sandpaper and then move on down to the 220 grit. And if I need it, I'll go finer than that, but usually those two combos work great. Before we do the sanding on the top, I'm going to fill in the holes on the drawers. That way by the time we get to the bottom painting, it'll all be dry. So just kind of going in little increments and steps here. I'm using the Gorilla Wall Repair. I'll have it linked below. You can also get it at Walmart. I'm just gonna take a little bit and smoosh it into the holes. I'm trying to leave a little bit of a raise, just so when we go back, the sandpaper doesn't take off too much, and then we're left with a little outline of the hole. So it should look about like that. And this particular product takes about 15 minutes to dry, so it'll be perfectly dry by the time we get ready for paint. For the staining portion, I'll be using some Minwax in Phantom Gray. I need a little wooden stick to stir, some gloves, and I'll be applying it with the sponge. When you stir your stain, you don't want to go too aggressively to create bubbles, so just a nice smooth stir to mix in that color there. This is one of my favorite ways to stain. So I get a sponge here. You can get them at the dollar store, and what you want to do is cut it in half so it can fit inside of the can. And then you just want to dip in an edge like that, so you have the tip of your sponge all saturated with stain. Then it makes it really easy to just take your stain and swipe it on. So you can swipe it or go back and forth like this. But yeah, this method makes it so easy and quick to apply that stain. The longer that you let the stain sit, the darker it's going to be. So I didn't let this sit very long, and I'm using a clean rag to wipe it back. So I want it to be like a really light wash kind of look. So now that these are all dry, I'm noticing that they're just a little too blue for me. Not exactly the look I was going for, but still a really good base. So what I'm going to be doing is just a light paint wash to kind of lighten it up and make it look more of that gray beachy kind of look that I'm going for. So I'll just be doing a paint wash with 1 part Dixie Belle driftwood and 2 parts water. After I got the paint wash all mixed up, I'm just using a chip brush to paint it on in even strokes. So I want to get the whole entire surface covered in that paint wash, and then I'm going to wipe it back. To keep an even look, I like to start with the edges first as I wipe back, and then I do the top. So the rag can sometimes leave smudgy marks or the residuals from the paint. So by doing it this way, you get a nice even look. It's painting day! So I have the tables flipped around on some pillowcases to protect them from debris and scratches as I work with them in this direction. It's easier for me to flip the tables around to get into all those nooks and crannies. So because this wood has a tendency to bleed through the paint, which is what I was experiencing the first time around when I didn't use a primer, I'm going to be using a spray primer just to act like a little barrier so the bleed through of the tannins doesn't penetrate and then go into the paint. What I'm going to be using is this satin clear enamel, and it's a Rust-Oleum spray paint and clear, and it's going to provide enough of a barrier for those tannins not to get through the paint. You want to make sure to shake up that can nice and good so you get that nice even spray. And then what I'm going to do is create enough distance so I can spray it out evenly on the surface here. And I did 2 coats of this. Because spray paint can leave a bit of a bumpy surface and I don't want that texture to translate over into the paint, I'm just going to go over with a very fine grit sandpaper. This is a 330. I'm hardly applying any pressure. This is just to create a smooth surface. I'll be using some chalk paint from Refinishing. It's the color Snow, so just a white. I love this square brush from Zebra because it can get into all those different nooks and crannies of a table like this. And of course, a spray mister bottle filled with water, just regular water. And we're gonna wet the brush first before we go in. Just give it a quick stir. Brush. The trick with chalk painting is less is more. You want to make sure to have a little bit on your brush at a time and go in nice even strokes as best you can. If there's any buildup, you want to go back and smooth that out before it dries. And a good way to prevent that buildup or any of the drips is to spray your brush instead of spraying your piece when you apply that first coat of paint. Instead of taping, I'm just using this tool here to get a clean edge on the bottom. So the first coat is always going to look blotchy. It's going to look like you didn't get enough on, and if you're anything like me, you want to add more paint before it dries. So you have to kind of just tell yourself, hey, this is how it's going to look, and trust the process. But other than that, just have fun with it. The first coat's all done. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry for about an hour or so. I want to make sure that they're all the way dry through, else it has a tendency to have some lifting happen when you go in with that second coat. And a good tip is to store your brush so you don't have to rinse it out or use a new one in a plastic baggie. You can put that right in there. So if you're going to be painting the same day, you can just leave it right by your tables, or you can go ahead and store it in the refrigerator. And it keeps it nice and fresh, so you can just continue to use your loaded brush versus having to rinse it out and start anew. Everything's all dry, so I'm going to go ahead and go over the surface with a 320 grit sandpaper just to make sure everything's nice and smooth for our second coat. You just basically, again, just rub it, and just really, it's that simple. You just rub your hand in wherever it's kind of rough. You know, you just give it a little bit of the sand, and then it's nice and smooth, and you can move on to the next rough bit. And then I'm just going to go ahead and dust off all that residual and then give it a once over with a rag. If you ever need me. So the difference between the first coat and the second coat is texture. So now with your surface that you're painting on, you have a different texture which will absorb the paint a bit differently. So what you're going to have to do is use your water. So you're going to be spraying your brush more, and now you're going to be spraying that surface of your furniture more. And while you're doing that, just make sure to watch out for some drips and don't go too heavy with it. Again, less is more. So what you're doing with applying these thinner coats is that you're going to be acquiring a nice smooth finish on your piece versus something that can look really cakey and thick. So that's what I mean by just less is more. We can always add on more paint. It's harder to take it off. The river's wide, dear, and the road is muddy. Even if I gotta swim there, you know I'll be there soon. If you would've told me your mom was coming, I would've worn my finest clothes. I'm just a poor boy, I I went ahead and did a third coat touch-up, and everything's looking pretty solid and good. I'm going to go ahead and do the top coat now. I do toggle back and forth between a polyurethane top coat and a wax top coat. It just depends on the project and the feel. So today I'll be going with a wax top coat. I'll be going over it with a clear wax top coat, and then I'll also be adding some white details. So I'm going in with two different waxes. I have not stocked up on supplies, so I'm using what I have. So that means that I'll be using a sleeve of a t-shirt and some socks. So these are socks that I've used in previous videos, so I'm not going to be sacrificing any new socks today, but this is what I'll be using to apply the wax with. Wax top coat is really easy to apply, and it's super foolproof. You just need a little bit and make sure to just rub it into the furniture piece. I like to do strokes and little buffs here and there, but overall eyeballing it, making sure things are even. You also don't want to leave chunks of the wax on your furniture piece. Make sure to blend it all in. Now that the wax has had time to dry, I'm going to go in with a clean cloth and just buff it in little circular motions. The level of sheen that you want to acquire is totally up to you, but it does need a little bit of a buff to kind of get a nice even look, and then that will be the base for it to cure over the next couple of weeks. What will become of us? Some you say, feelings too strong to keep hiding away, and the veil has come down and we stare at the blank-hearted moon. We grow to the ground like two seeds in the grass, hoping this moment before us won't pass, and closing our eyes with no sun. So after buffing this all out, I think I'm going to skip the white wax. I'm just really liking this contrast. I'm vibing with it, so I'm just gonna leave it be. You know, sometimes less is more. So next is, of course, the hardware. It's the jewelry of the furniture piece. I got these at Hobby Lobby, and I think that they are just the perfect fit. So I'm gonna have to match a drill bit to the size of the screw and get that on in the drawer. So we just gotta find our measurement, drill our hole, put them in, and we are done. I just did a quick measure across to find the middle, nothing too fancy. With the drill bits, it's always a good rule of thumb to start small and then work your way up to increase the size of the hole. But the first one I did ended up fitting perfectly. Thank you so much for hanging out with me with this DIY. I really hope that you liked it as much as I did. So just to make a note that I'm not fully back yet with the whole weekly upload schedule, but I will be uploading videos as I create DIYs, either for friends or family, or if I think it's something that you'd benefit from, or just my own personal DIYs. So I'm just gonna keep it casual as far as the upload schedule, but I will be here answering comments or questions. So if you would like to know anything about this DIY or any of the other videos, just go ahead and leave that in the comments box down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.